Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Podcasters. I am your Dungeon Master Anthony for today. And no, we are not running a session. The Saturday sessions are for Saturdays. And today is not. Today is actually Monday. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, welcome to Monster Manual Mondays. If you're listening to it, hey, it is Monday. And guess what? We are here to bring and jump into it. If anything, we're actually here to crack open a tomb of the monster manuals to look at a creature and break it down and see, should we use it in an encounter? And as always, for Monster Manual Mondays, I am joined by my good friend and a fellow Dungeon Master, Benjamin Nichols. What's up?
Oh, not a whole lot today. Just glad to be here and happy to see that our store is open again, doing regular business every day, and we're just taking it day by day to get back to normal.
Very nice. So you're currently actually, if they're looking right now at you, you're at Heart of the Game, correct?
Yes, I am in our studio actually. So during being locked down and only able to do like online orders and pickups, we repainted and redecorated one of our offices so we could create a YouTube channel. We've been doing some Twitch streaming, and we're just trying more ways than ever to stay connected with our gaming community and stay, put it bluntly, we want to stay in business. We want to keep finding ways to keep our place relevant, to keep talking about gaming and just promote it and share it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So real quick, right before we jump into the Monster Manual, I mentioned that, we started our campaign, the Saturday sessions on YouTube. It's really fun. It actually just currently grew. I had 3 players at first, and I just had a good friend, Chris Chavez, and co-producer of Podcasters, Greg Knowlton, jumped into the campaign, which is really fun, really, really cool. And I'm going to tell you, this next episode I'm ready to drop, it is a heck of a great time. People are going to love it, and the dynamic has just, you thought it was getting crazy. If you watched up to like episode 3 and you're like, oh man, where are these guys going to go? You were not expecting episode 4. I'm telling you. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw you actually uploaded a new campaign that you're starting to the Heart of the Game YouTube.
Yes. So we do a Twitch game that I Dungeon Master every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. And we just took the first episode that we recorded and uploaded it to YouTube, which is actually the second episode of the campaign. But the first episode was kind of like backstory and us still working out some things in the format. So I didn't want to put that on YouTube. It was definitely...
That's so good. That's okay. And that's awesome. And real quick, just because I know, but I don't think the people watching do know, where is your campaign set in?
Oh, the campaign is set in the world of Eberron.
Really?
It is my favorite setting personally because it combines... I like to think of it as like it's like the 20s to 40s, but we have magic and monsters. So we have trains. There's some airships. There's a lot of unexplored regions of the world. Think like Indiana Jones, that kind of like pulp fantasy. Good guys, bad guys, but the good guy could be working for the bad guys, so you can get betrayed. A lot of high adventure. It's a really it's just a really neat setting. What I love, I think, most about it is, as Keith Baker, the creator of the setting, had said, is that if it exists in D&D, there's a place for it in Eberron. And what's fun about that is that there are some creatures and monsters that get really cool twists to them, and there's others, such as like goblins and hobgoblins and bugbears, that are not your typical bad guys. They actually have their own country in Eberron, and yes, it's more militant than maybe some of the others culturally, but at the same time, it's like they just fit into society. They're just part of the world. And so there's no problem, if somebody wants to be a full orc, a goblin, a hobgoblin, you're not evil. There's no like alignment barrier to like your culture or race in Eberron. I mean, there's good eggs and bad eggs amongst everybody.
It's pretty cool. It sounds different. And so Eberron's also the setting with the dragon mark mechanics. Yes. Correct?
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like you could potentially be born with this, it looks like a tattoo, but it gives you spellcasting ability. And as your character progresses in level, that ability can wake up and become more and more powerful. And each of those who carry those marks, there's affiliated with houses that are not affiliated with any nation in the world, but they act independently. And sometimes they're always trying to one-up each other and take over things. So you get this kind of politics to it, like a Game of Thrones-esque, where you might be working for a house to one-up another house, or to do better. And some of those marks have multiple houses associated, and they don't always see eye to eye. So it's really there's so much dynamic to it, and so much just not kicking indoors, which is not a bad thing by any means. But it's just, there's a different type of adventuring that you play with when you can explore Eberron with.
I'm telling you, that's very interesting. And it's funny enough that you started an Eberron campaign. Is that one of my friends, Rick LaPrade, he's kicking off his own campaign. It's could be on Monday nights, actually, moving forward.
Awesome.
That is in Eberron. And I essentially, I'm playing a sorcerer finally, which I've been wanting to play with the sorcery points, and I hit the first downfall, and I spent all my sorcery points in the first encounter.
Oh no!
Luckily, we're at level 3, so I mean, I have enough like spells too, but I'm like, crap, those sorcery points are supposed to last me for at least a day or so before, or at least a fight or two before they're all gone.
Yes.
So I'm like, well, I'll figure this out. But I'm actually running a shadow sorcerer, but I'm fleshing him out as a cryomancer because I'm running a water ganassi.
Oh, very, very cool.
So I kind of basically want to turn Iceman at the end of this.
Yeah.
But I'm looking to explore this world. But that's pretty sweet. I definitely would like to break into and discuss Eberron on a future episode of another series, possibly. But that's not what we're here today. Today, we are cracking open the Monster Manual, and you had a great idea for us to tackle today. And let the people know what we're bringing in.
Today, we're going to talk about mimics. One of the oldest monsters in D&D, actually. It was first published in 1977. And I think it's there's so much you can do with it. That's why I have a lot of fun with it personally. It's a very imagination-friendly monster.
Yeah, I'll say a lot of doing research for this episode started to make me kind of think more creatively. Like, I've never thrown a mimic at my players. And it's like, why haven't I? Like, I get I've only DM'd a couple of sessions, but this is one of those monsters that you could just have if you were watching some of the live streams, my players have been on a ship because we've been running, and I'm like, why was there not a mimic barrel that someone got into? One of our players kept jumping into barrels. Why didn't I have a mimic barrel? I don't even know why I didn't think of that. Like, that is a great, that would have been so smart, so different. And players be warned. I'm thinking now. Players be warned. So let's get into mimics. So what the Monster Manual, basically what we're going to get says mimics are shape-shifting predators able to take on the form of an inanimate object, objects to lure creatures to their doom. In dungeons, these cunning creatures most often take the form of doors, chests, having learned that such forms attract a steady stream of prey. They're said as like an imitative predators, so they can basically alter their outward texture to resemble wood, stone, other basic materials. I've seen that some are even like metalish and clothing-like in nature. But basically, also pretty much is that if a mimic isn't identified as a mimic, it is assumed to be nearly unrecognizable. And then on top of that, some of them even gain intelligence and become smart, which in the general idea that it knows to assume the shapes of chests and doors and hallways already shows a sign of intelligence that this is where creatures go through, so I'm going to go wait here and lay a trap. It's not a hunting monster. It's not just blamelessly aiming a corridor like a gelatinous cube.
No,
this is a creature that knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into this.
So I like to think of it as those the flowers Venus flytraps, or those other one, that will, they wait for the bug to land in it and then they just close up.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is the pitcher plants, where like the insect goes in for nectar or water and then it just kind of falls into the bottom and gets digested.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a creature that just it waits for the opportunity, using its ability to shapeshift to be the enticing thing, to be the flower,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
Which, I guess I do see why in standard D&D you wouldn't have a mimic outside, because they are like light sensitive and supposedly, but like we've seen, and like we were talking about Eberron before, in other worlds, monsters and creatures have different abilities and different reasoning. So there's no reason that, field of mimic flowers, that's terrifying.
Yes.
Like
it's definitely like or just a boulder or a tree stump could definitely also be a mimic, something that takes place next to a stream where it knows that creatures were going to visit to get water because it's something they need. So now it's also near a resource that, as a living creature, could be argued that it needs, and it just waits for its moment to, waits for you to come into contact, or because they can move, mind you, very slowly.
Yep.
They could just reach out and grab you.
Which I think, I don't know what's more terrifying, being eaten by a mimic or being attacked and attempted to be eaten by a mimic, or watching a mimic move, because they don't move the standard way. They're not walking, and they can't, that's not like they're a snake where they kind of roll on their own body. They got to get a pseudopodic, sticky arm, throw it out, grab it, and kind of reel themselves in.
Yep. They have to, they do the the sticky hands.
Yeah, basically.
They slingshot it and just lurch themselves forward.
So speaking of sticky hands and having to be able to the ability for them to kind of sling out and kind of stick to themselves, let's just kind of run down the stats real quick to kind of break them down. So we have our AC of 12. They have a roughly hit points of 58. Speed of 15. I get it, but I feel like if I was running it, maybe not that fast in combat, unless it's all of its move.
For me, it depends on the shape.
Yeah, because if you're,
as you said, with a barrel, which can roll,
exactly,
I feel like it could potentially move a little faster, and so that's where you can play with variants and stuff. Whereas if it's something that's like a treasure chest, with square edges and a flat base, it's not going to have that momentum unless it takes a new form.
Mm-hmm. Which I think we'll get into a little bit later, is that taking a new form is not exactly the easiest thing for a mimic to do, or simplistic thing. It's a little gross, if anything, I think. And to just kind of run down the line of stats. So strength is a 17, dex is a 12. Actually, you know what? Forget that. Let's start this over. I like it. Let's go with the modifiers. Strength +3, dex +1, con +2, intelligence -3. I feel like that's more fitting. Wisdom +1, charisma -1. I would beg to differ to say charisma, if anything, I'd say give it a +1 on the fact that it tries to literally fool you into thinking it is a fake object. That is, don't give it a dump stat of an 8 just because. I feel like that is fair. That should be at least a 10 to an 11 for a charisma.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole basis of the creature is it's baiting you in. So if you say you never knew what one was and you encountered it for the first time, it could potentially try to convince you, if it is one of the ones that is of the higher intelligence, that it is filled with treasure and you should put your hand in there. I mean, that's in my opinion, a very horrifying thing to think about.
That's
terrifying. The mimics that convince you.
Mimics convincing.
That is a good idea to put your hand inside of its open mouth.
What if it's a mimic that's trying to convince you that it's a magical weapon?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
It could be. I mean, there's no reason it couldn't be an anvil with a weapon on top.
Yeah.
Is something very deceptive,
and the reason it's talking to you is because
one thing, but that could be that magic sword could be anything, and I won't know until I put my hands on it. As a player, I think that's some very powerful bait.
Well, let's bait it even more. It's a sentient talking sword that's magical.
Oh yeah.
That right there is that. I think if I had that as like in a side of a mage's treasure hoard and just be a sword that's like, hey, come on. Hey, no, no. I am the like you want to win. I'm the one. Give it a charisma bump to be able to charm and convince them.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
intelligence is high.
it's funny you say like a mage's treasure hoard because one of its an early appearance where there was a variant of it was the Minds of Madness. No, not Minds of Madness. What am I saying? Undermountain, which very well could be considered Undermountain, which is in Waterdeep. It's Hallister's giant maze of magical oddities and chaos. But there are greater mimics that are so big that they could be the size of like a room or a small cottage. So you could walk into a room that is lined with a mimic.
Honestly, that's kind of where I was thinking about like a greater mimic as a field of flowers.
Yeah.
Like a greater mimic like that. The idea like that's just terrifying because what do you do? You walk into the middle and guess what? That rug,
your feet get stuck to it,
boom, and you just see the mouth just kind of close.
The teeth start showing up, and
that's when the Venus flytrap teeth close.
Yeah.
So, mimics they're definitely a monster that I don't even know why I don't feel like even watching a lot of Critical Role. I think I've seen Matt use a mimic once or twice, which actually now learning that about them being used with mages, it makes sense where it was placed. So what I found out that actually mages in the earlier editions of D&D created mimics as defenses for their treasure hoards.
Yes.
To kind of elude treasure hunters. So, you like the idea of I didn't make the connection in the moment where I said the sentient sword in the hoard, in the treasure hoard, but I guess maybe in that idea of that, listen, you go to grab random treasure, that's risky regardless, especially from a mage. And it's a very smart way to try and have it where it can be deterred. It's really kind of cool creatures.
Oh, yeah.
They have a stealth of +5, which I like. They're immune to acid, which makes sense. They're immune to being prone, which makes sense. They have dark vision, 60 feet, passive perception of 11. Okay, I'll give it. I see here that they mark it as languages with nothing for language, and that's a challenge rating of 2, which I guess maybe for the standard mimic, maybe it is like a very basic chess. It'd be a challenge rating of 2. But still, the situation that it presents and puts the party in, I feel like it could be power scaled very easily, if not careful.
It's one of those monsters that I really enjoy because its challenge rating does not tell the whole story. Even a higher level party can potentially be in a lot of trouble because you come up to a door, you say, hey, you know what? This could be locked. Let's check for traps. So the guy who's going to check for traps is probably a rogue who, even at 5th level, doesn't have a lot of hit points.
The squish bag.
They're not expecting this creature, so then they make contact as they check, and they get stuck to it. And now you're stuck to this thing, and all it needs to, it just starts eating you. It starts biting at you. And if you have maybe a trap associated with that, so you have the mimic door, and that's just part of the encounter, and now you've disabled a character because now they're stuck to it. So either that person has to break free on their own, or somebody else in the group has to help them break free, and you have some other element to it. Maybe like when the mimic moves, it trips another trap, so the hallway starts shooting darts, or acid doesn't affect the creature, so you have like a jet of acid come up from the floor or drop from the ceiling onto anybody who's trying to break into your vault as just this extra layer of protection. And that's when you just have this creature that the only way to make it worse is more than one mimic, which typically, if you just go by as written, they're a solitary hunter, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily always accurate. You could potentially have a colony that has hatched, entered a dungeon, and they proceed to just, pick off whatever they can. And maybe they make a dining room set. So now you have a table and chairs.
Oh, no.
So you go into a room, you're like, oh, yeah, we'll sit down and relax. You sit down in a chair, and now you're stuck to it, and its teeth are like gnawing into it could potentially be chaos. I'm not saying I've ever done a table and chair mimic, but I have.
I'm thinking a table mimic would be terrifying, because I saw some fan art of something like that drawn up, and I'm just like, I could just picture, like, you sit, like, I'm not even thinking the chair mimics. That's terrifying. I mean, that's just a double whammy. But I'm sit down in the chair.
It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a short rest. We're gonna take a breather, and next thing the chair starts trying to eat you. So you're already low on resources, and you think you've gotten to a safe zone, and somebody says just nonchalantly, it's like, well, my character is gonna sit down, and next thing you know,
oh yeah,
panic sets in because the group's got to fight this thing off.
Well, and I think also. I just want to say, so you mentioned before where, with the rogue, just especially, if you're a weaker character, the DC check to kind of fight it off just as written, which can be scaled. If it's a larger mimic, I'm going to have it be a harder check, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strength check of 13, which isn't bad. But if you're a rogue, you're not bumped. That's not your that stat ability.
No, it's probably not your prime stat, your best feature, and it's going to be really tough for you to convince me that you can wiggle free with like dexterity, like escaping a grapple where you maneuver yourself out of it, or I'm going to try to squeeze through these bars. You literally are stuck. You have to pull yourself away from it in some way.
And if I'm a vicious DM and I'm in the moment, I may say, well, guess what? In the process of wiggling free, you also kind of bumped into it with your foot. Or, like, you're not going to rip free and just be good. Like, if you're getting eaten, like, you're going to be making multiple checks to get out of it. And especially so, like you said, you get a party where they get it, where they don't notice it, especially in a safe zone where they sit down, they're now stuck. Plus, in the moment, they moved into the table, so now they're literal, like all lower half getting taken out. Like, you better hope someone has got something stored away.
Well, the other thing too, this is where, like you had said, where if somebody fails their check trying to escape. So this is where I like to kind of borrow from Dungeon World, and I like to have degrees of failure myself. And so I usually set that, like, if you fail by 5 or more, it might get a little bit worse. So that's where I would be, you only got a 4. So, and you could see references that to like some of the other monsters, like Gorgon, for instance. Mm-hmm. Medusa, where it has petrification instantly if you fail by, I think if you get less than 5, you're just instant. You don't have the graded where you start turning. And so I always like to implement that in other ways, where you do really poorly, things get a little worse. If you do okay, but you don't fail outright, we maintain status quo. And then, the same goes true. Like if you roll a nat 20, you don't just obviously it's much more than you need to escape a mimic. So maybe you escape and roll out of it, and I give you a bonus action to do something extra because you had such a clean escape. But yeah, they're such a fantastic monster.
Very, very interesting, and I don't know why. Like, they're so simplistic and yet so just terrifyingly creepy. They have some really, really sweet abilities. So they're a shape changer, and they can use their action to polymorph to an object, into an object, or back to its true amorphous form, which essentially are like a rocky shade of just fleshy skin.
Yeah.
Like, mimics are shapeless. They're like a slime, but they're not slimy. They're like a skin.
Like a sticky mucus to them too, because that's that adhesive quality.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a big like a booger.
Yeah, so for the way I picture is like if the chest mimic, just for example, like I'm assuming the chest part would be tough and rough like a stone or wood.
Yeah.
It's when you open it up that
Yeah,
the gold is a sticky and
yep,
mucusy
there's
kind
the
of drippy.
tongue. It's like a frog tongue where it just like will grip onto you.
Yeah. And I mean, so the way they actually, I mean, have you ever had them in combat where you've had them like describing how they change to your players?
I actually haven't, because like the first, like I haven't used them very often, and I think that's just because I kind of overlooked it a lot of times because I was like, oh, I don't want to just do a treasure chest monster, and then it came on to me one day. I was writing an adventure, and the idea behind it was I laid out a dungeon map with tiles, and I made a deck of cards, and each card had an encounter. And so
Oh,
as the players would go through, I didn't even know it was going to come up. I would just flip the card in front of everybody. And so, I'd get like, and I had a few things that were hidden. So it's like I get chair. And so then like I put things in the room, like chair and tables, and then I had like asterisk. So there was like a chance that, and I would look to my master key for this. So some of the chairs and furniture were real and some were mimics. But I set that tone as part of the dungeon as just like this little weird thing about it. And it was really fun because we had like, as I had all these props from a Hero Quest board game. So I had lots of little scenery bits. And yeah, we played, I mean, I think we played like 6-7 hours to go through the whole thing. I put a Mind Flayer in there. That was,
oh, that's cool.
yeah, that was kind of funny. I put a wizard, like who was just supposed to be like a henchman. And it was crazy because the first room we opened the door and then there's the wizard and then fireball. Like, I was like, wow, this could have ended really, really quickly had it not been for a couple of people making exceptional save rolls. But it was just neat to like try something completely different than we'd ever done before when we just finished a campaign. So it's like, let's just try something else. Let's do a dungeon crawl one day.
I actually like that idea of using a deck of cards, and I may grab that for a new idea I have.
I got that idea. It was in the 4th edition Dungeon Master Guide.
Really?
Yep. And they had a whole like system to it. And like you'd have a treasure deck too. And then, tell you what treasures you'd load it up with like certain tables and have it all kind of figured out. But you just didn't know what was going to end up where. And yeah, it was really fun. I just adapted it to 5th edition and it just worked really well.
Oh, let me see real quick. Deck of card idea. Because I've been wanting to find a way to randomize a like urban encounters.
Oh yeah.
I kind of want to do like a almost like a red light district type idea where it's like this is in the not like not like the House of Pleasure type stuff, but like more like the idea that like this is at night. This is from 11 to like 4 o'clock in the morning. Are you going to break into a house? Are you going to try and visit a shop? Are you going to go to a casino? What are you trying to do? And kind of, I want ideas to kind of randomize
the Undercity.
Yeah, the Undercity. That's kind of what I want to do. I may use that for that idea. But that's really interesting, especially with having them used as cards. Well, the reason I asked is that, so I was trying to, in my research, I found out that, so the way the mimics transform is that they have like these little capillaries and they have to like shoot the skin color pigment to like the outside of their bodies. And then when it tries to like shift and change, it like wrings itself out kind of like a towel.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very interesting, very cool. Like man, like part of me wants to have it so that I describe the mimic as like, you guys see this massy substance wringing itself out. I kind of want to have it like from afar, so like my party kind of sees it coming in, and they kind of can see it maybe out in the wilderness, setting itself into like as a trap, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Like you always see the mimic. You always see it when it's like, oops, that was a mimic.
Yep. When you stumble upon it, yeah. I know, for instance, I don't know what stuff like. I might be jumping here, but
Yeah, go for it. Jump.
one of the things that I really do enjoy about them is that they have those intelligent variants, which
Yes.
means you can barter with them, negotiate with them, and what's fun is because it's a creature that wouldn't necessarily be given a name, which means you would have to, you think about like the creature itself. What would it call itself?
Yeah, and like, well, so
Because it would have some kind of awareness, so you could actually really get into some interesting things where the creature is like trying to discover. It's like, what am I? What necessarily am I? Like, 'cause it's not, when they are intelligent like that, they're not just running on instinct. So
well, it's weird that they took away the language property from it, because I can see it just being a mound of like kind of like a slime, but you know what? Guess what? It has enough body mass to constrict itself to change. I could see it kind of vocalizing, kind of like, maybe if anything, have it speak by having it make, like, you see it make and replicate vocal cords.
Yeah.
And like start talking, maybe. Like, it'd be weird. But the fact they just took it away is like, man, that would have been weird. That would have been interesting to have as an element. I mean, being proficient in speaking mimic, that would have been kind of freaking cool. That would be a bard thing, I feel.
Oh yeah.
The bard would be the one that knows how to speak mimic. You never need it, but in that one moment, they're gonna be the one. No, guys, I got this. I'm gonna haggle with the chest.
There was one dungeon. It was the 3.5 iteration of Undermountain, and there's a mimic in there, and it's a painting, and it's in a hall of paintings. And what's really fun is it loves to drink. So like, it's one of your negotiating tactics is, if you can get that from it by talking to it, is that if you offered it wine, it would actually like kind of be your friend.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And give you a big edge in negotiating and talking to it. And you could actually influence enough to make it, I think, at least friendly. I don't think it would like go adventuring with you, but it would like kind of act as a spy. And if you just kept feeding it, it could help you with information and stuff.
Oh, that's different. And that is the kookiness that I love about it.
Yes.
It's so just, wait, like, you did what? Okay. Like feeding a mimic a drink. Like, really?
You uncorked a bottle of that Chardonnay, so the painting
like
could befriend you.
Yes. Okay, sure. Sure. Whatever you say. Like, that's how I could see it. Like, all right, I guess we're going to go with it now. But I think I like it. Honestly, I'm really glad that you recommended and thought of these, because within like looking into it, it made me kind of reevaluate how useful they are as a tactic and how underrated, I think, overlooked they are. Because they're not underrated, because people do understand how cool they are, but overlooked they are into just putting them into more and more settings. Like, I've seen, I'm sure he's used it before, but I only distinctly remember a mimic once or twice coming up in Critical Role. A couple of the other streams I've watched from other campaigns and other sessions from other players, I distinctly don't remember a mimic coming out. And it's just like, I would like to, and I actually am gonna plan on throwing these at my players this Saturday before anyone can watch this.
Oh, perfect.
And so I'm just going to go over real quick the rest of the abilities they have. So they do have an adhesive, and that's when they're in the object form only. It says the mimic adheres to anything that it touches. Huge or smaller creatures adhere to the mimic. They're also considered grappled by it. Ability checks from this grapple have disadvantage. They also have the false appearance. This is where if they remain motionless, they are and it is indistinguishable from the actual object itself. And then also on top of it, they have the grappler ability, so that they have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that is grappled by it, which is terrifying. So you're grappled by this chest. It has advantages on eating you, and you have disadvantages of getting out.
Yep. It's just kind of, sometimes like I like to think of John Carpenter's film, The Thing. There's some scenes where some of the guys have gotten way where the creature has stopped mimicking them and has started to like becoming a amalgamation of like what they were and what the creature is, and it's like mid transformation. And like they have the guy on the table, and like he just splits in half, and he has those big teeth and just grabs the guy's arms. Sometimes I think of that scene, and it's just like how terrifying that would just be. Does it see a thing, just something, a chair or a chest or a barrel, just open up, big giant teeth, and just grab?
Yeah, like that's like for me. I think in my campaign, I would make him go for sanity rules on that one at least. Like, make a sanity roll. Like, this is gonna mess with you if you're not expecting it. If you're not a traveler, especially if something like a large, like a barrel, like. Not just oops, a chest, and it was oops, guess what? The chest was going to mess with you. No, this is a giant 5-foot barrel opening up.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Very, very, very deadly. I mean, the challenge rating of 2, but I mean, you get enough bad checks with it. I mean, you get, it's force damage too, which is hurtful. I mean, oh, like that's one of my least favorite is just when it just is force damage. And then for weapon attacks, it can do a hit with the pseudopod, which is a +5 to hit, 5-foot range. 1d8 +3 isn't bad. This is bludgeoning damage. And then if it is hit while it's in its mimic form, it is then subjected to the adhesive trait, which it doesn't have to use. Yes, I mean, guess what? Oops, you only hit one. You only got hit with 1 damage. All right, cool. Guess what? You still now stuck to it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is like you have to get away from it, get somewhere far enough away from it, because say hypothetically you might have like a bad guy who's taking over a dungeon. He might just have this thing in a pit.
Yeah,
he just throws people into it. So now you have this horrifying creature that you didn't know was in there with you as you're in his prison cell, and then all of a sudden wakes up. And now you have to deal with it, escape. It's bad news. I mean, even like a challenge 2 monster, it's definitely something that goes, as far as low-level monsters go, it has a lot of mileage in storytelling for D&D. That's for sure.
I'll say what I do realize too, and what I've been kind of learning as a DM myself, is that lower level monsters, there's a reason that people should start off with like dungeon mastering with a lower level campaign and work your way up, because these lower level monsters have a lot of versatility and a lot of creative ways that they can be used to help teach you how to DM these larger monsters with all these actions. This is a very simple, very basic monster stat block.
But there's so much inspiration and
exactly
so much to play with.
Like we took the idea of the mimic and we've created, I don't know how many different encounter scenarios in this past half hour alone.
Yeah,
cell block, the field, the chair, the chair, the table, the basic, just the chest, the the door that with the acid dropping, like
the door, the booby trap door is like, because it's planted there by whoever owns the place. What's even worse is that door could just be a plant to a dead end.
Yep.
Like you grab the mimic and it's like, that's just a wall. He just like roadrunnered you with a mimic. So then like you think it's like, all right, cool. We've dealt with the challenges. There's just a wall there. This whole thing was just a trap.
That's all it was. There's not even a payoff at it.
There's no no
payoff.
There's no payoff in that section. Yeah, it's because a mimic isn't going to necessarily know to plant itself in a doorway. It just knows that people use doors, so it just needs a place to go. So it plants itself against a wall.
You don't know until you open it.
Mm-hmm. Or unless you're very, very astute. Like you could drop some little subtle clues too about how the door seems a little bit ajar, but it's, or like the hinges aren't connected right. There's some descriptive clues that if a group, like isn't necessarily, you could give hints to like reward the people who are really focused. And you can little things like, say you had a door earlier that had a distinctive mark on it. And then this door later in the dungeon, the mimic is exactly the same, has that exact same mark because it copied the door that it saw. And some people are like, well, that's weird. Like, why would both doors be exactly the same or have this distinctive, it might just be from like somebody chopping it, like a wood chop splinter or chunk of it missing, or a knot in like the middle of it.
Yeah.
So you can also, like, it's kind of nice to be able to like reward people who really pay attention and pick up on those kind of things, because then it's like, oh, wait a second, why is this door exactly the same right now?
And I mean it's really one of those fun reward payoffs too, especially if you have the party that's like, well, I want to make a high or really detailed investigation check of, I want to look and perceive, is this door the same? And if you roll high enough, I'll just say like, yeah, you do notice it. This looks like it's got
door is an exact clone.
Yeah. And then you have that party that's like, oh, that's a mimic. Let's just stay away in general. Yeah. That alone is a reward that you didn't have to deal with the mimic.
Yep.
Unwillingly. Unintentionally.
You didn't have to get ambushed by it. And then they can think, well, it's like, well, what is it after? And then somebody reaches into their bag and feeds it. Next thing you know, they just run by.
Yeah.
Or they feed one of their, companions to it, whatever.
Same with that. Well, the thing is that, so like, do you now have the door start flipping sides, following them down the hall?
Yeah.
Oh, that is a scare. That is a psych.
Bump.
You're just like, what is that?
So you turn around and the door is closer to you. Yeah.
You're just like, wait. Oh, that's fun. See, now that is some psychological horror that I need to implement in my campaign. Mimics, the new Japanese horror craze.
Sure, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, mimics can be like, when you have something that can copy anything, it really, and you got to remember they're sticky too, so they could be even on a ceiling.
Which is terrifying in the sense of, so mimics. They say the average mimic weighs 4,500 pounds. I don't know how much I believe that fact there.
I think it would depend on, in
the size.
Like I guess it would depend on how big is it specifically. Is it a bookshelf? Is it a half barrel, like a half keg? Is it?
Well, I mean, if it was. Well, here's the thing: is that, does it really matter its poundage? Because I mean, if the adhesive is as strong as it is, and it's able to stick to the ceiling, doesn't matter how big or how strong. I mean, that is a lot of weight being dropped on you. That is a, I mean, if anything, that is a spider web trap waiting to drop.
That's where we start looking up those tables, like that damage by size and height table kind of thing. And it's like, okay, now we got to start figuring out things. We got to look to our improv damage here. Like, what level is the group? How much is a heavy hit?
Well, I think as a great trap, it is what if it drops mouth open?
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Just swallow somebody.
Guess what? Yeah. It's not going to eat you and like swallow you all in once, but now the party has to get to you, and it's going to have to fight through a giant mimic that dropped on you. Yep. Which I'm sure you're going to take damage in the process of them hitting the mimic, which is
quite possibly. Yep.
Be careful how you hit it, and know that if you kill it, you may hurt him and kill your party member. And if you do, you got to bring them back. But man, mimics, I really think they're fun, and I really have today, like this even right here has been like, oh, you got ideas for days now. They're going. Yeah. The hamster wheel is going. Boo, 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 boo. I'm like, all right. I feel bad for my players.
Everybody who listens to this should feel bad for players.
DMs, if you haven't incorporated mimics yet, please do.
Highly recommend it. Or even if like it's something that you make an allusion to or reference to, just something to keep people on their toes.
Like a story in a bar, like, yeah, last party of adventurers that went up there, just ate the dude. They see, and then maybe like having like talking about like, yeah, went in searching for treasure, and they ate old Long John's there. Like,
I had an NPC that every story he told was how somebody got eaten by a monster on an adventure he was on. Every single story he had a story about It's how somebody got eaten. That was his whole thing.
Tell me the party didn't go on an adventure with him.
They didn't. They were too afraid to bring him on.
Good. See, now some party members listen and are smart. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't railroad the party or I'd allow that meta game. I'd be like, well played. That's the true enemy of the campaign.
Yeah, that guy. No, I think they just looked at him as a jinx. Like, he just happened to be like, every time somebody, like, people were around him, something bad would happen because he's unlucky. But yeah, I just kind of put him in with that quirk just as comic relief, and I did give them the option, like, if they wanted to hire him to come along.
Oh no. Oh man, I'll tell you, this has been a fun episode.
Yes, it has.
Do you have any final notes on mimics that you'd like to discuss?
I guess just try to be creative, have fun with them, and if your group seems like they're not having fun because you've overused them and they've gotten to this point where they're checking everything with a 10-foot pole to make a step in the dungeon, it's okay to tell somebody that it's safe, to go through, that there's, it's if it means better gameplay, it's okay to break that fourth wall and just, completely say, hey, you don't have to worry right now.
Yeah. I mean, especially, I think really, you kind of alluded it to, you didn't allude to it, actually. You were referencing Mountain, the Mountain?
Undermountain, yeah.
Undermountain, but Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially, maybe let everyone know, like, first level, no mimics. Second level, maybe a mimic. Third level, probably some mimics.
Yeah, because especially if they seem worried and it's like, well, guys, just so we can keep the good flow of the game going.
Yeah, you don't want your players paranoid.
Like, there's a certain level of paranoia that it's like, we're here to play a game, so we do want to, like, keep momentum going and stuff. At least it's how I play. I'm very much, anybody, if you tune in on YouTube, Heart Gaming is our channel. You can see how my most important thing, in my opinion, is, for me, as I like to just keep a good flow.
Keep a good flow. I like that. And with that, I think that's some great advice for DMs all out there, and especially, players too. Try and just help the party keep a good flow, and you don't want to be the person that's checking for everything. And if you are, discuss it with your DM and be like, listen, can we have at least some keywords so I know that I don't get over the top middle of it, if anything. At least so then they know that the whole party doesn't have to be in danger. Yeah. But Ben, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Let everyone know, where can they find you? Where can they follow? Where are they going to watch the new campaign that you're starting in Eberron?
Well, if they want to watch live, you can go to Twitch TV, Heart of the Game. We go live every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And then my intent is to have the recording uploaded on Tuesday for the last week's episode on our channel Heart Gaming on YouTube. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram, Dungeon Master Benjamin. And you can also find me in the Facebook group D&D Players of Western New York, where I'm always happy to talk about D&D, share things that I stumble upon. And if anybody ever has, like, hey, I have a DM question or I have a player question, please hit me up. I love talking about D&D.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Sweet. Well, guys, just like Ben said, go on out, follow, support the Heart of the Game, support your local game shops everywhere where you are able to, when you are able to. Make sure you check out their new campaign in Eberron. Make sure you also follow them for some great Magic the Gathering videos as well.
Yes, and that's what we've started with, and we're slowly filming and expanding it to other stuff in our time when, because we're not at the, we're not open 24 hours a day at this time, so we use the time that we're closed to, keep working, keep chugging along, and just get some good content out there and
keep
bringing the shop to you. That's kind of one of our thought process. We want to bring the LGS to everybody, so that way during this time of social distancing and the COVID-19 virus, that people who, maybe they can't go out. Maybe it's like it's, too risky for them. They can still have access to what we would bring to the shop, which is games, fun stories, table, talking at the counter. We have a Discord for Heart of the Game as well, which anybody's really free to join. And if I'm on in voice chat, just say hi. Or if I'm, just be like, hey, Ben, what's going on? I just love talking geek stuff.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome.
To everybody out there.
Listeners, guys, viewers, if you're watching live, please head on over to their YouTube after you're done watching it here. Please make sure you hit like, subscribe, rate, review. Those do matter. And speaking of YouTube and reviewing, ratings, and subscribing, I was your Dungeon Master, one of your co-producer, co-host for today, Anthony Mullen of Podcasters. Listen, guys, head on over to the Instagram. It's podcasters_tabletop gaming. I've been posting up some fun stuff there, just to kind of keep an active presence. You're soon going to get to see some pictures and some drawings, some sketches, some paintings. We're going to be doing some giveaways in the future coming up, hopefully with a future sponsor. We're going to wait to share that with you guys. And you know what? If you're also watching this, if you haven't yet, hit follow, hit like, subscribe below somewhere about below there. And make sure you come back for all the future episodes. I'm going to tell you, you want to make sure you know that when a new video goes up, you want to make sure you see it. I'll tell you, as I become more active on YouTube, I've noticed a difference of actually hitting subscribe and liking. Because I know, like, when Nerdarchy drops a new video, I'm like, oh, cool, sweet, I'll click it right away. Or D&D Beyond with Todd Talks, love it when he goes on. He's awesome. When he pops up, I'm going to watch a new one. He just did a couple, he dropped like 5 videos yesterday or 2 days ago with Jeremy Crawford, going over the new subclasses and going over the new Theros content, which is awesome. And I watched all that and I loved it. And I was only able to know that by hitting subscribe and liking and following and giving reviews. So listen, if you could do that for them, I'd appreciate it if you do it the same for us over here at Podcasters. I appreciate it if you did the same over for Ben and the guys over at Heart of the Game. And then finally, if you're looking for more content in general and you're looking for the uncensored, unbeeped version of our Saturday sessions, head on over to the network. There is a page coming soon where you're going to be able to watch the video Saturday sessions streams at bicbp-radio.com. Future link to come. And it's going to be the uncensored on YouTube cut. So it'll be a great time, fun there. And you can watch us all in our rage and glory because, oh my God, I don't know what I have done. But I'm going to tell you, praise be to Mama. Don't mess with Tiamat. And until next time, we're going to close this monster manual.